Welcome everybody and thank you for joining me. So once again, I would just like to give a quick disclaimer for those who might be finding the channel for the first time. Now this is an Xbox centric channel where I cover Xbox related news that happens throughout the week. Now typically I do like to script and structure these videos because I like to have direction and proper structure. My goal is always to ensure that I stay on topic and get to the actual title of the video immediately, but I also like to sometimes do these weekly roundup videos where I don't really follow along with a normal script. These are more longer style discussion videos where I just go over the weeks of Xbox news, touch on a few topics that I did not have time to discuss during my normal Xbox news videos, and also stories that I just excluded because I felt it fall more towards the Xbox rumor side of things. In these videos, don't expect any sources to be linked or anything like that. As I've said, these are more just discussion type of videos. If you are looking for official Xbox news videos, properly structured with sources, quotes and everything else, please feel free to check out the rest of the video. But today, just to give you an overview, there is a few things that I will be discussing. First of all will be Xbox backwards compatibility, the Xbox Series S that is starting to become a major hit among some gamers, Xbox taking away a long time exclusive from Sony, and a few enhancements that some games will be getting. So let's just start off with Microsoft announcing that they will be bringing more backwards compatibility games to players, but not only that, they will also be releasing a bunch of old games to mobile players without them needing Xcloud. Now backwards compatibility is one of these features that Xbox have been heavily touting leading up to the launch of the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S. People have been asking for backwards compatibility since the Xbox 360, and it just seems like we would never get it. It is one of those advantages that PC always had over consoles, and it still kind of does, but it was clear that Xbox really wanted to make the effort and bring those old titles to new players on their new systems. I believe Xbox started with backwards compatibility all the way back with the Xbox One. I remember those classic Xbox games started to pop up on the Microsoft Store, and then also when Game Pass was announced, they released so many more games, especially Xbox 360 games. It was one of the reasons why I really love Xbox Game Pass. They brought so many classic Xbox 360 games that you can just play all over again. I never thought that I would be able to play through all of the Fable games again on console until I signed up for Game Pass. The original 3 Gears of War games was also a very pleasant surprise. I used to love playing those games, and when I got to replay them on my Xbox One, they were just as fun as I remembered. To my surprise, they also looked and played a lot better. I do believe they were part of the games that Xbox gave a frame rate boost for, which is another thing that I really love about this whole backwards compatibility thing. They are not only bringing those games back to the new console, they are also ensuring that they run better by giving them this big frame rate boost. You don't really notice playing these older games on console when the game is locked at 30 frames, but you can just feel the smoothness of the game when they get that frame rate boost up to 60 frames or sometimes even 120 frames. I do now understand why so many PC gamers will go out and buy those massive 1440p refresh rate monitors. You just experience the game in a whole new way. Honestly, I would rather have a 1440p 120 frame gaming experience than 4K 30 frames or even 60 frames. Anyway, I just feel like I'm going completely off topic here again, but now that I am off topic, I just quickly want to keep the train off the tracks just for a little while, because there's something today that I saw that completely just blew my mind. Xbox obviously is doing a great job with Xbox Game Pass and also ensuring that they bring all of their games to PC as well, but did you guys know that Sony actually is doing the exact same thing? And this is where I need to fault Sony because their marketing just sucks. Sony has a service called PlayStation Now, and it's not just on the console. They fully support the service on PCs as well. They have over 800 games that Sony officially supports on Windows. All of the God of War games is there, Uncharted is there, Killzone is there, and so many other exclusive Sony games, and I had no clue that they were supporting PC to that extent. Sony fans have been shitting on Xbox for doing this for years now, and here Sony is doing the exact same thing. Now granted, they are only doing it for all the titles, but still, I have been thinking about buying a PlayStation for a while now. The last time I owned one was 15 years ago, and it just felt like during that time I missed out on so many good games, and I had no clue that you could just subscribe to PlayStation Now for $1 and play all of those games without having to even own a PC. I've been wanting to play Last of Us, and I always thought that you needed a PlayStation. I had no clue that it was just supported officially through Sony on PC. The same goes for God of War and Uncharted. I definitely want to check that out on PC and just see what it is like. I did hear that PlayStation Now is not very good, but for $1 I am willing to take that risk. Even if I just get one game out of it, I feel like it will still be worth it. But anyway, again, as I've said, I'm getting a little bit off topic here, so let's just get back on track. And the point that I was trying to make here is that Xbox is now putting a lot of focus on backwards compatible titles, ensuring that almost all of their previous games will be available for the new generation. I have heard people like Phil Spencer talk about this in the past, and based on what he's said, it is not a very easy task to bring all of those games over to the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S and run them properly on those new consoles. They need to go into each of those games individually and make a bunch of changes just to get those games to work. They also need to make a bunch of changes just to get that FPS boost, which is something that I actually did not know. I always thought that Xbox just used the power of the Xbox Series X to boost their older games using nothing but the power of the hardware. I believe that is how Phil Spencer explained it, but apparently that is not the case now. It does not work like it works on PC. On PC, your gaming experience is determined based on the hardware that you have. There is no real cap on the game. If you have a GTX 1060, you get 30 frames. If you have an RTX 2060, you get 60 frames. Everything just comes down to the hardware. On console, you need to actually go into the game and change those frame rates. I guess they cap it on consoles to ensure that you don't experience any FPS drop that causes lag. If you are experiencing lag on the PC, you can just go into the settings of the game. On console, you don't really have that option, so I guess it does make sense for them to lock the game, although now I am sure that it is a pain in the ass to go back into those games again individually and make those type of changes. I also don't even want to know how many people it takes to go back through those old catalog of games and change them and make them backwards compatible. It takes a lot of effort to do these type of things, and I am really glad that Xbox is doing it, because before that we really did not have anything. I think PlayStation had backwards compatibility with the PlayStation 3, but I also remember that kind of being a disaster. They called it the Fat Boy, or at least the fans called it that. That was that fat PlayStation 3, and it was pretty much just the PlayStation 3 with the PlayStation 2 inside. I guess you have to give them credit for the attempt, but that just did not work at all. It cost like $650 and it almost killed them. It was also during that time that the Xbox 360 was popping off, and I think some of the credit for the success of the 360 does need to go to that very expensive PlayStation 3. But anyway, I guess things are just a little bit easier now than it was before, because these consoles are just PCs now, but still it is still very time consuming for them to do what they are doing. At least Xbox did have a head start because they already started doing all of this backwards compatibility thing during the Xbox One cycle. PlayStation did not have that type of head start at all. I think they might have been taken a little bit aback when Xbox announced that pretty much every game that they've ever had on their platform will be backwards compatible on the Xbox Series X and Xbox Series S. PlayStation, I believe, only have PlayStation 4 backwards compatibility, and this is also where the famous "we believe in generations" from Jim Ryan comes from. Now for me personally, I would never make a decision on which console to buy based on backwards compatibility, but I think the option is still nice. It's just going through all of those older games again and playing them is great, and Sony also had so many classic amazing games. It would be nice if they could do something similar to that. I still remember all of those classic PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 games, and I think I would really just love to go back and play all of those games again. And I'm sure that there are plenty of people who also feel the same way. I noticed because Sony just announced that they are closing their PlayStation 3 and Vita store, meaning that you will no longer be able to play any of those games unless you already own them, and I have no clue to what extent the backwards compatibility on the PlayStation 5 goes to. Maybe someone who owns one can tell me, but I did see a bunch of people who are upset with the announcement from Sony. The general thought among fans was, at least based on what I have read, was that Sony should just find a way to integrate the Sony PlayStation 3 store to the current store, and I believe that is how Microsoft is doing this. They are just taking the Microsoft store and all of the games from all of the generations is there. I do not believe that that is the case on PlayStation, at least I think. Again, I don't own a PlayStation, but that is what I read. But anyway, I've been having a great time with these older games, and one thing about playing these older games also is that it's funny how your taste kind of changes over time. I used to be a much bigger fan of first-person shooters, for instance, and now I just struggle to get through them. Another one where I noticed that kind of my taste in games have changed, and I hate to admit this, but this is with the Halo franchise, and that was kind of a big surprise to me. I loved the games, but the other day I was playing through them, and for some reason I just could not finish them. I played through the first one, and I just immediately got irritated towards the end, and I could not even finish the second game, and I don't know what is wrong with me. I just could not get into them. Now I am still very excited for Halo Infinite, and I cannot wait to play it again. But maybe it's just because it's older games or something, I really don't know. The same thing happened to me with Mass Effect. I just could not get through the first game. I am still maybe planning on getting the remaster. I'm hoping that that would at least give me a little bit of a better experience. Honestly, I just think that your taste just changes over time when it comes to games. I mean, I played those games 15 years ago. I was literally in primary school. I don't even really remember it. But also even 5 years ago, I remember I bought The Witcher 3 and I was super hyped to play it, and 3 hours into the game, I just put it down and I couldn't get back into the game again. And then after finishing Cyberpunk 2077, which for me is still the best game that I've played, at least what I can remember, I went back and I played The Witcher 3 again, and this time I absolutely loved it. I could not get enough. I was literally playing for hours and hours on end. I finished the whole game from finish to start. I did a bunch of side quests, and honestly I want to play it again. But I guess, again, that just shows you how your taste in games kind of changes over time. But back to the original point, backwards compatibility, I'm glad that they are doing it, and I'm glad that you get to experience those type of old games again from the previous generations. But let's move on, because I wanted to talk about the Xbox Series S. Now this is one of those consoles where no one really knew how things were going to play out with the console. Whispers about this console started to pop up in 2018, I believe, but no one really then knew whether the console was going to be real or not. Even after the announcement of the Xbox Series X, we still had no real confirmation about the Xbox Series S, and I have to say the hype behind the console was just absolutely insane. Everyone was going crazy speculating about the console, and then Xbox finally announced that the Series S was real, and just like that the conversation shifted to who is actually going to be buying this console and who is this console actually for. It was not very clear in the beginning the exact target audience for the console and how it will actually stack up against the PlayStation. Even I was a little bit confused as to where this console will fit in, especially after Sony came out with their own digital console that is just as powerful as the PlayStation 5 for $400. After that, it was very clear that if the Xbox Series S stood any chance, pricing would be everything, and lo and behold, Xbox announced that their new console will be $300, which in my opinion is just an absolute steal. Now the reason why I want to talk about the Xbox Series S is because they are starting to become a real competitor for PlayStation. I know that that sounds crazy for the hardcore gamer, and it probably is. Even a normal gamer, it might be crazy hearing that. The Xbox Series S falls considerably short to the PlayStation 5, but we also need to remember that who that console is actually made for. Xbox did not create the Xbox Series S for the hardcore gamer. They created it for the casual gamer who just want to get into next-gen gaming without breaking the bank. And if you take a look at it from that perspective, the Xbox Series S really does hit the mark. Most hardcore gamers who is in a good financial position will just go out and buy all of the consoles. Most have the Xbox Series X, the PlayStation 5 and a gaming PC, but that is just not the case for a normal gamer. I do not really consider myself a casual gamer, but even in my case, I just own one console, and that is the Xbox Series X. I would love to buy a PlayStation, but price wise that's just not in the cards right now. So with the Xbox Series X, it costs $500, and then you just get Game Pass for $10 and you're set. PlayStation owners need to spend between $400 and $500, and then you also need to pay $70 per game. Now most people are willing to do that, as evident by the amount of consoles that they sell, but there is definitely a casual market out there for people who's not really willing to spend that type of money on an Xbox Series X or a PlayStation 5, and that is where the Xbox Series S console comes in, and where they are starting to become real competition for Sony. Again, if you are one of those people who game every day, I understand that might not make a lot of sense to you. It did not make sense for me as well until I started to have a few conversations with some of my friends who I consider to be casual gamers. One of my friends was talking about how he wanted to get into gaming, and I recommended getting the Xbox Series X. Now when I said $500, he immediately just completely switched off, but then I mentioned the $300 system capable of playing all current generation games, and he started to pay attention. And then when I mentioned there is Game Pass for $10, that was it. The Xbox Series S is extremely appealing for casual gamers who just want to keep busy on the weekend, and one thing that Xbox really did do correctly was focus on Xbox Game Pass. Having a $300 system capable of 1440p gaming with Xbox Game Pass is a value that very few can compete with. In fact, I would argue no one can really compete with that. The biggest selling point for the Xbox Series S is Game Pass. I don't believe that console would have worked as well if Game Pass was not in place, and that is another area where I do need to give credit to Xbox. The money that Xbox have spent with that service and just invested into the service is really going to pay off heavily in the long run. I think in my opinion it already have paid off. Games being released day and date is a huge selling point in itself, and if you combine that with the Bethesda deal, things just get a lot crazier. Xbox have no games is just no longer a thing, or it won't be true anymore. Even if all of the Xbox games releases on PC too, it does not really matter. First of all, it's only relevant if you have a gaming PC, and as I just mentioned, casual gamers, most of them don't. If you are telling just a normal person or normal gamer that there is no reason to buy an Xbox because you can already play those games on PC, that is just completely irrelevant to them. They still need to make the choice between Xbox and PlayStation, and that is where a $300 Xbox comes into play, especially if you combine that with Game Pass. And I think most people, if you put that type of option in front of them, they will just choose the Xbox for $300. And it really is crazy how little some people actually know about gaming. I again had that type of realization when I was speaking to one of my friends about Madden. He really enjoys playing those games, and I just was giving him shit about it one day, asking him how he can support those games if they are pretty much just reskins of the previous year and EA monetizing the shit out of them. And they also have these casinos which pretty much just make them gambling games. And when I asked him how he could be supporting EA when they do this type of thing every year, his response was, "Who's EA?" And that just again made me realize that most people just don't follow along with gaming news like we do. They just want to play some games at a very affordable rate, and they do not really care about the rest. They don't have Twitter, they don't spend their lives on YouTube. They just want to come home, turn on the console and play games, and for most people a cheap console is perfect. But that pretty much sums up what I wanted to cover. Now there are a few things that I also just quickly wanted to touch on that I did cover during the week, but I just like to circle back to that. The biggest thing for me was the news that broke that Microsoft Microsoft is looking to buy Discord for $10 billion. Now, I already said what I thought about the deal in my original video last week, and that was the fact that the whole story is a little bit suspicious. I'm not suspicious about it because the deal itself seems crazy. In fact, it makes perfect sense to me. Microsoft have been looking for a strong community for a while now, and the voice chat features with Discord and what they offer, it will be a great fit for Xbox. But I was suspicious because of the fact that Discord decided from their side to approach Microsoft. Now, the reason why that is suspicious to me, for those who don't know, there is this common business practice, and this happens a lot more than people think. There is this common business practice where a company will pretend to be for sale, and they pretend to be for sale so they can get a bunch of big offers. And when they get those offers, typically those offers leak to the public, and then the public also know how much that company is worth. And usually what happens after that, those companies, they go public. And all of a sudden, you know, their IPO is worth a lot more because all of these big offers that they were receiving from all of these companies who wanted to buy them. So in a case like Discord approaches Microsoft, they tell them we're for sale, they get a $10 billion offer. Now, before this, we had no idea how much worth Discord actually was. Well, now all of us know Discord is worth $10 billion. So just like that, overnight, we went from, we don't really know how they make money, we don't know what they're worth. Now all of a sudden we look at Discord, the $10 billion company, and they can now easily take that and go public, and they will make a lot of money on their IPO because the public now knows that the company is worth $10 billion. Or they can take that $10 billion offer and take it to investors. And again, that is an easy way for them to say, look, we're worth $10 billion. We just got an offer for $10 billion. And that's an easy way for them to just get more money from investors. Now, I'm not saying that this is the case. That is what Discord is doing. But it is a very, very common business practice. And it is something that you need to take into consideration because a lot of companies do that. But anyway, as I said, I've already covered that in my original video last week. I just wanted to quickly touch on that again because I did see a few questions regarding the whole Discord deal, but again, we're gonna have to see how that whole thing plays out. But then I also just quickly want to move on to another piece of news that actually broke, and that is the fact that Xbox just took a big game away from PlayStation. NBL 21 is a baseball game, and for those who don't know, that game will be coming to Xbox, and it won't just be on Xbox, it will also be releasing day and date on Xbox Game Pass. This game used to be a big exclusive with Sony for many years, and it was also quite popular amongst the fans. It's not the biggest game in the history of the world, but it's definitely a game that Sony always showcased during their event. I always saw the game during their gaming montages that they did, and it was very clear that there was quite a following with the game. Now, I'm not super sure about the extent of the deal with Xbox. I don't know if this means that the game will become exclusive with Xbox or not. I don't believe it will. But it is still big news if you are an Xbox fan. Even if you're not a fan of sport games, which I'm definitely not. I mean, they are fun to play sometimes, but I won't really go out and buy them. All of the major sport games is on Game Pass, so I will download a game here or there. But the point is, even if you are not a sports fan, the fact that Microsoft can just go to the competition and take one of their exclusive games, it just shows you how big Xbox Game Pass have gotten. And they are also not just bringing over old games. Baseball releases the game every single year, so the fact that they can get these new releases that will be out somewhere, I think in April, again, it just shows the power of Xbox. And even if you are not a fan of baseball, as I've said, I have no real intention of going out and playing this game. I'm still just impressed by the fact that they were able to go out and just get the game on Game Pass. And this also just comes right after Xbox made that big announcement about Outriders coming to Xbox day and date, and that was another big thing where I thought, like, this is really impressive, the fact that they can just go out and get those games on Xbox Game Pass just the date that it releases. And that is definitely a game that I do want to play. And the reason why the baseball thing is also a big thing is because if you want to buy the game on PlayStation, you need to pay $70 for it, and if you want to buy the game on Xbox, all you need to do is have a $10 subscription. Now the big thing also here is the fact that if you want to play this game on PlayStation, you do need $70, and if you want to play it on Xbox, all you need is $10, and that is a big plus if you do not want to spend $70. Now if you play the game all year round, there might be some advantages to just owning the game outright, but if you are just playing it for a few weeks or just want to check it out, Game Pass definitely is a much better option. And then let's just also quickly talk about the fact that Xbox is also going to enhance a bunch of their games, and I see all of these type of enhancement news starting to pop up more and more. CD Projekt Red is another company that wants to enhance a bunch of their games. They just announced that they are going to bring out an enhancement for The Witcher 3, which I am really excited for. I just spoke about The Witcher and how much I enjoyed playing the game, so I am glad to see that we are going to get that next generation boost for it. Although I have to say, I did play the game not too long ago, as I've said, and it really did play really well. I was quite surprised by the graphics. It's hard to believe that that game is 6 years old. Now I do think that that game already received a frame rate boost from Xbox, but I have to say, if they are going to enhance that game, I can't even imagine how good it's going to look, because even for a 6-year-old game, I still thought that the game looked really well. At least it did on the Xbox Series X. Now one thing that I would say is that I wish that CD Projekt Red will also spend more time on Cyberpunk. I think it is about time that we get a fully next generation or current generation optimized version of Cyberpunk 2077 for the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. The game needs to be optimized properly for this generation. The game has so much potential, and I think if they can release a current generation optimized version with some added DLC and maybe an online mode, I think it will be a massive hit. There is no doubt in my mind that people will absolutely start to pick up that game again. Now those are not the only games that will be getting a boost. Bethesda also will be enhancing a bunch of their games. Oblivion is getting enhanced. In fact, I think it might already be out, although I'm not sure about that. I just read it somewhere. I think Skyrim is also going to get a remaster or a boost, and I think that will be out in July. And then they also announced from Bethesda side that Elder Scrolls Online for consoles will be getting their very own optimized next gen version, which I'm also really excited about. So it seems like a bunch of games will be getting boost, and I think it can be quite good, especially if you take into consideration what Xbox have with like quick delivery or smart delivery. It's one of those systems where if you already own the current generation version, you don't need to pay for the next gen version again. And now that Bethesda falls under Xbox, all of those games will be benefiting from those boosts, and you do not need to pay for them again if you already own them. And what makes it even more better than that is if you already have Xbox Game Pass, you will be benefiting from all those boosts, and you don't even need to buy the game. All you need is a Game Pass subscription. But anyway, on that note, this is where I'm going to end it. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again next time.